Welcome back to New Record Day. My name is Ron. If you are into two-channel audio, consider yourself an audiophile or music enthusiast. Welcome home. Make sure you hit the subscribe button and bell notifications so you know when the next video drops. In today's video, NRD takes a look at what has become one of my favorite speakers outside of the realm of open baffle designs, what makes a speaker so darn good, and why is it worth the $6,000 price tag. Well, with a warm welcome back to New Record Day, that is exactly what we are going to find out. Alright guys, before we dive into today's video adventure, this review is being sponsored by Audio Art Cable. Now look, seeing that I am indeed using the Cryo E2 series interconnects and speaker cables from AAC, I'll save you from the hyperbole and just leave it at this. I do believe that cables can make a difference, and for those interested in checking out AAC, all the links needed are in the description box down below. And as always, thanks to Rob from Audio Art for sponsoring today's video. Last, before we dive in, we are now offering exclusive content for patrons. In this video, I dive in a little deeper with the concepts and compare them with the big boy speakers I love so much, being the Sapphires and the Auticas. If that's something you might be interested in and want to support the channel at the same time, all the information that you need is down below. Thank you guys, we appreciate it. The Concept 500 is a two-way MTM design offered by Q Acoustics. The speaker stands just under 46 inches, is just under 16 inches wide measured at the base or plinth, and is just under 14 inches deep. The baffle itself is approximately 8 inches wide, and each speaker weighs a back-breaking 92 pounds. Of course, I had Sarah in Georgia help me out with these guys, because they're very heavy. Offered in black, white, or silver ebony as shown, the Concept 500 combines a 7-layer lacquer finish with a complementary wood grain that in the end is quite frankly one of the most beautiful finishes I have ever seen. The Concept 500s include a jumper which tailors the top end extension of the speaker. Don't worry, more on that later. A cleaning cloth for each speaker, ball end feet or spikes, which can be swapped out depending on what the speakers are going to be sitting on, some foam port plugs, which I'll also be talking about later, and of course, a user's manual. Spec-wise, the Concept 500 is rated at a believable 90 dB and are rated at 6 ohms. I'll let the cat out of the bag early in saying I found these to be easy to drive and love them both with tube amplifiers as low as 20 watts, and equally love them with high power solid state amplification. In short, these are very versatile speakers that accept a wide range of gear without any problems whatsoever. The Concept 500 is rated to dig as low as 41 Hz and extend as high as 30 kHz. The 6.5-inch woofers are of the paper cone variety, and if you are new to my channel, paper cone is generally my favorite material to be used in woofers. The tweeter is soft dome and just over 1 inch and is placed in between the two woofers. One of the things that you can't see, and I'd imagine one of the biggest success factors of this speaker, is Q Acoustics' attention to detail when it comes to resonance control. It's not just by happenstance that these weigh a whopping 100 pounds, and the amount of bracing techniques used by Q Acoustics is exactly what we want to see here at New Record Day. For starters, the 500s make use of dual gel core, which is a cabinet constructed of 3 separate layers. The gaps between the layers are filled with a compliant foam of non-settling gel. These two constrained layers effectively damp the walls of the speaker by converting frequency vibrations to heat, which is then dissipated harmlessly within the damped gel. Even more, Q Acoustics adopts a method known as P2P, or point-to-point bracing, which supports the parts of the cabinet that need to be stiffened to deal with low-frequency panel vibrations or pressure. While taking the cabinet and resonance control seriously is step one, Q Acoustics also takes the same approach to the development of the drivers being used in the Concept 500. The mounting of the high-frequency driver is mechanically decoupled from the speaker cabinet, which again reduces any kind of stray vibrations that would otherwise be transmitted between them. The mid-bass driver's voice coil is unusually large at 35 millimeters, which allows increased shove and high power handling, as well as reducing compression. And last, tall speakers, such as the 500s, can suffer from resonances caused by unwanted pressure gradients. Q Acoustics uses specially designed Helmholtz pressure equalizers to balance out the pressure problems and leave us with the performance in the room. And what does that performance sound like? Glad you asked. Let's go ahead and dive in and take a look. Keeping in mind the 500s come with a jumper that allows you to adjust attenuation to the top end, the concepts are pretty versatile in dialing the extension to taste. Granted, taking some gated measurements of the speaker, I will show you that the changes used on the jumpers are very minor, so don't think of that jumper as making drastic differences in treble town. As always, being honest, I had a very hard time telling much of a difference with the jumpers at first, but over the long haul, I started to hear some subtleties and changes in the time domain for treble extension. For those who want data to geek out on, you can expect less than a decibel of a difference from around 5K and up. So again, small changes and nothing drastic. The top end of the concept sounds incredibly balanced, and I'll avoid wasting time by telling you now, this is going to be the common theme of the entire review. Anything ranging from cymbal hits to shakers or hand claps drenched in reverb, the 500s will never sound forward, bright, or shrill. The response of the 500 shows us objectively what a straight line looks like, and the result is a natural presentation of all things on top. Another thing, with a balanced top end, this is going to be an easy to recommend speaker for any environment. While I do take acoustic treatment seriously, I know a lot of you folks might not have a dedicated listening room and don't have absorption to deal with some nasty sounding stuff hanging out in treble extension. Similar to how I feel about the Spatial Sapphires, I believe these speakers will be easy to get along with regardless of the environment. All tile and hard surfaces in Arizona? No problem. All absorption, heavy carpet in the basement home in Minnesota? Again, I think you're gonna be fine. As I made my way through my lengthy playlist of favorite audiophile tracks, I lost interest in analyzing what I was hearing with the 500s because they just play the top end the way that it should be without hyping one particular thing. I could argue that unlike something like my Audicas that highlight some of the top end details better than most speakers, these 500s might end up being a little laid back for some listeners. So without being long-winded, it's simple. Just ask yourself the following questions. Do I want a lively top end that's super expressive or unravels every single detail on top? If so, these might not win you over. Now, if the question is, do I want a balanced top end that gives me fireworks when I really need it and sounds completely neutral or natural at the same time? Well then, Sally, get that finger resting on the checkout button and let's chat about mid-range. Of all the salient attributes of this speaker, Soundstage being my favorite, which we'll talk about in a minute, mid-range is a close second. Male and female vocals are rendered with clarity and precision that is both convincingly hi-fi and at the same time musically engaging. What does that mean? There are times when I listen to 500s when I feel they are so laser line accurate with every single note being sang that it almost reminds me of the precision I've heard in concentric designs. At the same time, the 500s are able to bring their holographic-like image to the party, which gives the lifelike illusion of the actual performance. They're very musical in that way. The clarity of the paper cone woofers comes into play with male vocals, and even more, I can't hear any smearing or artifacts that might suggest These guys are using cheap and cheesy components on the inside. I gotta tell you, I am more tempted than ever to pop the hood on these, but you know what? I don't need to because I just enjoy whatever the heck they're doing. Maybe ignorance is bliss, and if it is, well then my friends, this might be what bliss actually sounds like. Equally impressive is how the 500s render anything acoustic. Noting the body and resonance from Ben's guitar on Every Kingdom, I listened to the entire album in one sitting because the 500s managed to check off every single positive box that I am looking for on that album. It was perfect. Switching gears to something a little bit more exciting, like the recently discovered London Music Works and the City of Prague Philharmonic Orchestra's rendition of Why So Serious. You guys gotta check that out. Holy cow. The 500s quickly reminded me, these speakers aren't just about the relaxed acoustics and can deliver insanely dynamic content without breaking a sweat. If you have not heard that track, go now. It's more important than the rest of the review, I'm going to be honest with you, but come back and watch the rest of my rambling later. That track is awesome. In regards to its tonal fingerprint in all things mid-range, I found the concepts to be dead nuts neutral, and just like the top end, naturally balanced without any silly games like dip here or peak here, just for the fun of it. These speakers are for the purists out there that want to hear what's on the recording for what it is. Simple as that, folks. The bass on the concepts can be tailored more than you might think with the included two-piece port plugs. In my room, I do have some mode issues around 50 Hertz in a specific location, and when the speakers are placed there, it gets boomy very fast. Using the included plugs, I was able to shave off a few decibels caused by the room modes, and it left me wondering, why don't more manufacturers offer these kinds of tools to help with room issues? I mean, it's a hunk of foam, for crying out loud. It's not gonna break the bank, so good job, Q Acoustics. I certainly do appreciate that one extra piece of foam that you managed to fit within the budget. Like, come on, manufacturers, get with the program. Anyhow, the bass on the speakers is confident down to the mentioned 40 Hertz, and while that doesn't quite cross the line of answering, do you not need a sub? Your results might vary based on your environment and music taste. I do wish these dug down just a little deeper than they do. So then we don't need to point you in the direction of another purchase. Now, with that being the case, the bass tone is freaking fantastic. Texture and tone is not an issue at all with the concepts, and once again, Paper Cone seems to reign supreme when it comes to bringing the goods. Making my way through a number of tracks to test bass, I kept forgetting I was in work mode because the bass sounded so musical that I just found myself enjoying the music and nothing more. As you guys know, Soundstage for me is king. When a speaker can just give me the performance in the room and leave me alone to enjoy it, I am happy. This, folks, is precisely what the 500s do, but they do it in a way that is unique, so it is my privilege to chat about that in this section. It is important to understand that when a speaker works so hard to minimize resonances and vibrations of the cabinet, it's not only audible, but it directly affects your ability to hear the soundstage for what it actually is. I know I might be getting some flack for citing heavily in the corner of open baffle, but at some point we all have to have our bias and favorite flavors of hi-fi ice cream, and that is mine. Because Q Acoustics has done such a fine job with the Concept 500, it's going to be easy to recommend this as my favorite speaker outside of the realm of open baffle offerings. It's quite frankly a life-changing experience hearing the staging on the 500s because it doesn't come with the consequence of hearing piles of resonance added onto the music. Being able to distinguish the exact location of everything in the mix, both depth, width, you name it, is not only easy, but it keeps pace with some of the best speakers I have heard, well above the price points of the concepts. First thing we're going to take a look at is an impedance sweep. On the woofer side, I'm showing 7.4 ohms, and on the tweeter side, 6 ohms. The lowest point of the sweep shows 3.8 ohms, and that is within the 80% rule of the rated impedance. So the 6 ohm rating on the Concepts is both honest and true. Next, using Clio Pocket and an 8 millisecond gated window at 39 inches, I took some shots of the 500s, and here is where we landed. This frequency graph is showing my measured response on access to the tweeter with the 3 different jumper settings. Easily within the 5 dB threshold throughout the vast majority of the bandwidth is what we are looking at, and it's pretty clear that what we have on our hands is a very linear response. Next, let's take a look at the horizontal off-axis measurements. First, in this example, I start on-axis to the tweeter. Remember folks, what we want to see here is a natural roll-off from the on-axis point to the others, and in this example, that is exactly what we see. Not only do we see a natural roll-off, but we see a very tight grouping as well. Next, let's take a peek at how the Concept 500s do on the vertical plane. In this example, I start with the mic on axis to the tweeter, and then I move the microphone up 4 inches at a time, starting with what you can see in order as red, orange, yellow, green, and blue. So yeah, if there is one challenge about getting an MTM design absolutely perfect, it's probably going to show up on the vertical plane, and here it does. While we have seen better vertical responses from other designs, I'm going to still give a nod of approval to the Q Acoustics team, as this is still pretty dang good. Only when the mic is 16 inches higher than the tweeter, which is our blue line, do we see that sag in the response. Outside of that, I'm fine with the horizontal and vertical findings of this speaker. Last, let's pull up the spectral decay and see if we can find any nasty resonances or stored energy. Clearly, folks, this is as close to textbook as it gets, and picks fights with the cleanest of clean waterfalls we have ever seen. When we talk about a speaker that gets out of the way and just gives us the music, it's clearly seen in the spectral decay, and I couldn't be happier with the results here. $6,000. It's a lot of money. That's not cheap. We have the Sapphires at 5. We have the Exoticas with the H-frames. You're gonna be in that same price point. They're all fantastic. What's unique about these is it has been a good while since I have been able to fall in love with a boxed speaker. Really like fall in love with it and get to the point where anytime I get these out on the dance floor and I listen to them, they are reliably great. I can always count on the Concept 500s to give me the music, to give me the soundstage, and it really is going to be the easiest speaker to recommend for some of you guys that either A, you're not into open baffle, and that's okay. That's totally fine. That's my favorite flavor of hi-fi ice cream, and if it's not yours, that's fine. Man, when you have a company like Q Acoustics they're tackling and working on the fundamentals, like, hey, I know the marketing team isn't gonna be in love with us bracing the heck out of the speaker because that's not as flashy as, I don't know, putting some weird strings on the front of the speakers, or maybe paint it with some gold stripes or an extra veneer. Like, that's not what the marketing team wants to hear. Like, hey, we need this big of a budget to deal with resonance. The marketing team is like, what? And what I love so much about the speaker is, yeah, 7 layers of lacquer. That's phenomenal, and that looks great, and it's a killer looking speaker. But even if it didn't have that, even if this was just a basic looking speaker, this would have been the exact same celebration from New Record Day, because the amount of effort and energy that they put into the fundamentals is what is so darn exciting, because I hear the result of that. I hear what happens when you take resonances very seriously and you wrestle them into submission, and what you get is the performance in the room. They did a great job. If I can't convince you to go in the direction of open baffle for whatever reason, that's okay. Number 1 pick. These would be, I'm already telling you, if you email me and ask me what else is out there that's not of the open baffle variety that you've heard that you really, really love, it's the 500s. I love these speakers. They're great, phenomenal. So, I'll see you guys in the next video.